Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I've been on a long flight today, so I'm a bit tired, but I'm back in my kitchen after a little while to do an Instagram Live, and I'm going to be talking all about the mental barriers that are involved in OCD recovery. So what tends to happen is along the journey, well, let's take sort of life in general, not just OCD recovery. So in our lives, we will have many obstacles that come into our lives in different ways. Maybe it's a health condition. Maybe it's a health condition like, say, mental health. It might be an injury. It might be something to do with your work. It might be something to do with your relationship. You're going to have all kinds of mental obstacles, all kinds of mental barriers in your life that are going to come along. And what it's about doing in your life and in OCD recovery and anxiety recovery in general is learning to keep doors open in your head towards hope. Now, what does that mean? That's not just some sort of motivational spiel that doesn't go anywhere. It means that we've got these barriers all the time in life, in lots of areas. So with OCD, it will be like, oh my God, what if I never recover? Barrier. What if I'm not clever enough to recover? Barrier. What if I haven't got enough energy to recover? Barrier. So you've got all of these different barriers that are in our heads. Now, when we get sort of stuck behind them and sort of locked in there, we feel like we can't see anywhere to go. So if we've maybe broken up with a partner and think, oh my God, I'm never going to find another partner, that puts up a mental barrier in your head. So then you think, you feel locked, your world feels smaller. You feel like, how am I ever going to get out of that position? How am I ever going to come through that barrier? And we can't even see those barriers because we're so used to thinking like that. So it's like anything, like, okay, a small mental barrier. I've just been on a very long flight and I've just got home, and I could say, okay, I don't want to do an Instagram Live because it's very late. It's 12:30 at night and I'm pretty tired. But then I thought, well, could you do one? Yes, you could. Why not come on here? Obviously, there's a balance in life. I don't need to do an Instagram Live now, but I thought, why not? And so it's little things like that. And in the OCD recovery journey, there's so much of that. Oh, I'm too tired. I haven't got the energy to do that. Oh, I'll just stay in bed. I'll just go on the laptop. I'll just watch Netflix. That's too much. And we've got all of that going on for so long. That becomes so much of a problem in just sort of trying to overcome anxiety in general, anxiety physical symptoms. The physical symptoms used to be very draining for me. So whenever I used to experience physical symptoms, I used to think, God, if only I hadn't got these, then I'll definitely be able to get better. If only these weren't in the picture, I could deal with the mental stuff. And then when the physical symptoms weren't so bad, I was like, bloody hell, if only I didn't have that one particular fear latch, that one particular thing, then I'd be able to move forward. If it wasn't for that one, then I would be okay. One second, I'm just going to put the air conditioner on. Second, because I literally just ran and it's pretty hot. So the other thing that I want you to think about is with OCD in general, what you're doing is you're learning skills for your life. You're learning rationally how to adapt to your life in general. Now, my whole way of seeing things comes from a rational approach. So anything in life that I come across, a problem outside of OCD or anything, I'm always thinking, what's a rational way to approach this? How can I look at this? What ideas can I have? What perspectives can I have? Because you're going to meet that along the road in life. You're going to meet that in lots of areas. So the skills that you're learning for OCD recovery are not just for OCD recovery, they're for life. So say, for example, you have, let's think of something that you might have a situation come up. Something doesn't go your way in your job, and you are very upset because you feel like you have not been treated very well by your boss, for example. You may feel very frustrated at that and think, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. But is it the worst thing in the world? Well, it's actually not the worst thing in the world, but in that world in your head where you've looked at that and you've looked at that sort of that sort of small work, that work world, you can feel very caught up in it, like you're completely locked in this, your world feels like it's completely closing in on you. And that is very much the case with so many things. Say, like, for example, when I was doing a lot of exercise and I was working out a lot, and I used to have a gym. And when I had a gym, what happened was one day I was doing some weights and I injured my neck. And Nick will probably tell me about this, but I damaged one of the discs in my neck. And that disc that got damaged, I have a bulging disc there, but it was pretty bad. And I was having to go to a chiropractor and physio every week, and I couldn't do any weights for a long time. And I was losing a lot of muscle, and obviously I wasn't the best with BDD, body dysmorphic disorders. I felt like I was losing my whole world, and I was like, how can I ever do my job? How can I ever be happy again? How can I ever go towards my goals again? And so that all felt like my whole world was sort of shattering and closing in on me. But it wasn't. In the scheme of life, that is absolutely not the case. Life is so much bigger than that. But my world in my head was like just that. So a common thing that I see people come in to see me with, I work with a lot of people in India and in Pakistan, and I work with a lot of people in China and in Japan. And what happens is in a lot of cultures, they have a very sort of work and a hard work mentality. And that's in all different cultures, but in some cultures, it's more of a sort of a hard work mentality and focused on career goals and so on. And I see a lot of people come in who want to be in medical school or want to be an entrepreneur or want to be a lawyer or whatever. And they feel like if they don't get that goal, they can never be happy again, that their whole life and happiness depends on that specific goal being met, and their family's behind that, and they're behind that, and they've never ever pictured a world outside of that. And that's the same as, say, an athlete who's been training. Let's take someone who's a footballer and had a knee injury that means they can't. Instantly they can end up in mental health problems only because they're holding those really rigid, irrational beliefs of, I must achieve this goal. I must get where I want to be. I must have this life as I've pictured it in my head for my future. And that is not a flexible belief system. Because what we need is a flexible belief system so that when obstacles come along on our journey in life, we can adjust to those, because there are going to be them. We view our life to be this sort of perfect way, like, this is going to work and that's going to work and then this is going to go like this. And we don't take into account obstacles. An OCD recovery journey is full of obstacles, new symptoms, new thoughts, people not understanding. We don't need them to understand, but it can bring added frustration when you're not yet at a place of understanding that you don't need their approval. How to get better, how to break down your fears. Let's look at OCD briefly in the sort of context of it. What is it? It's basically just a fear cycle, okay? We've built it up so much more than it is. Yes, there's a genetic component, but it's basically a fear cycle. We're scared of something. That's what everything I do is about. So in my job, I'm working anxiety coaching and OCD coaching people, so helping them to see where they're getting themselves scared, help them with their perspectives, learning to see things rationally, learning to use philosophy to help change their beliefs so that they don't catastrophize and make themselves so scared, as well as giving them a good insight into what's going on in their thinking with that fear cycle. And that was key to me when I decided to go into working with OCD, because I realized that people needed to learn these mental skills and then share them with each other, with other humans, because that's what it is. It's not just something for OCD, it's for life. When you get better, but you get better from the sort of the anxious cycle and the OCD cycle, you can then say to your friend, hey, you're having a bit of problem with your exams, you're a bit worried about X, Y, Z, this is how you should approach that. This is how you can change your thinking. And this goes into all areas of life. And that's the goal. What we're trying to do is rational thinking, learning to teach other humans rational thinking, and learning to teach them to distance themselves with thoughts and anxiety and all the other little parts that go together with that. And that's key for everyone to really to help bring OCD out and anxiety out the dark. Because as we know, it's very misunderstood. I went from place to place, specialist to specialist, trying to get better. And I learnt lots of great tools along the way, very important components involved in the OCD recovery journey. But I certainly didn't understand enough to stop that chronic guilt and chronic anxiety cycle, which has been my life's work in helping people really understand how to get under that sort of web of fear that's latched around the core fears, keeping this all going. And that's vital because it was a very lonely road. You know, I first developed OCD around 17 years old, and I didn't know what the hell had gone wrong with my brain. And barely anyone I went to really could stop me from ruminating over a real event from the past, because I was convinced this is a real event, this is different, this is the exception, this is not just OCD, as we all do. And that cycle went on and on. And later on, when I developed sensory motor OCD, that felt like an inner torturous cycle where barely anyone understood. I mean, today, even when talking about sensory motor, I rarely hear people say, hey, do you know, the main thing fueling this is you're scared of that sensation being stuck forever, and you're scared of that sensation being latched and destroying your day. And that's something Nicholas Pinella on our channel, who's also commenting here on today's Instagram Live, talks in detail about. We've got tons of videos on sensory motor OCD, and we've got more webinars coming up on that. And so that's what is so key. It's learning to have a look at this fear cycle and learning to break this down. And this is going to involve learning to be more rational, learning to approach things that feel difficult and challenging, learning to hear uncomfortable things, because we're going to have to get used to feeling uncomfortable. And this is key. You've got to look at your journey as OCD as not an obstacle to your life, but a stepping stone to your future, a stepping stone to empowering your life. Think of it as the thing that's going to open those mental doors in your head that's going to change the direction of your life, not away from your goals, but around the obstacles that you would have been stuck at before had you not seen this. Because until I saw and learnt all about OCD and anxiety recovery, I wouldn't have been able to think of the ways of the directions in my life and overcome so many obstacles, because my belief system was so rigid and black and white. It kept me trapped and locked away from that. So you've got to use that, because look, when I was stuck, I used to literally sit there going, and look, I don't like to swear in videos, because I think usually I do swear sometimes in videos, in a lot of videos, because I think, oh, it's not a problem. But I do also at the same time think, if you're going to explain a point and you need to swear, you don't know how to explain the point well enough. And in this situation, I do need to swear to demonstrate the point. And the point being that when I used to be really stuck with OCD, it used to feel like banging my head against the wall. And I used to, in my head, just think, fucking hell, if only I hadn't had this fucking life, this one thing, if only I hadn't had that one thing, my life would be like this, like how I want it to be. And the problem with that is that mental block, that thing I was saying, with only this one thing, well, that's what OCD is always going to do. And of course, OCD is not the disorder you want, and it is difficult and challenging until we know how to get better. But the thing is, those were mental barriers, and I was keeping myself trapped in that position all the time with that. I'm never going to fucking get over this. This is the worst fucking thing I could have ever had in my life. How could this happen to me? How unfortunate this is. Oh, I can't stand it. Oh, I wish I was before I had OCD. Oh, I wish I wasn't even here. These things, that's the depth of it. When I'm speaking on these videos now, people don't see it because I'm talking pretty calmly and sort of rationally about the journey, but it was a hell where I felt squashed right like that all the time. And my head felt like that. And when I used to go to the gym and work out, I used to want to fight it. And I used to lift the weights sort of thinking I'm going to get myself stronger and stronger to escape, which was doing the opposite, because what I was doing was fighting it. You can't fight it, because that's the problem. You've got to learn to accept it and be at peace with it. And I was very angry and I was very anxious and I just couldn't see any way around it. And I was beating myself up harder and harder and harder. Where did that get me? Didn't do anything. But what happened is, after a while, I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with any of that. And I had to start moving towards acceptance and changing my perspectives on life. And then that motivated me in a healthy way of, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And how am I going to go and do that? But at the same time, focused, laser focused, but at the same time, inside, I was taking it one day at a time. I realized I wasn't going to get recovered instantly. I realized this might take a while, and I allowed it to take a while whilst being focused on what I was doing. And that was key. People think anger, this is a really nonsense thing that people think. And Albert Ellis really highlighted this in the 70s, saying that anger is the one emotion that people so much want to cling on to and hold on to. So much they want it. But no one enjoys it. I don't enjoy being really angry. I don't enjoy that feeling. I'm not talking about sort of kind of light, healthy anger, where if I'm going into the gym, lifting weights or on a boxing or whatever, I don't think to myself, oh, I hate that kind of anger, where you're really getting in the mood. I'm talking about the anger where you think, oh, I can't stand this. And I'm trying to do the body language to demonstrate it so that you can see and feel what I'm saying here. You know, we used to speak to my mum when I was 17 to 21, talking about OCD. And she used to say, it's like you're banging your head against a wall because you just can't stop that cycle. I said, that's exactly how it is. That's how it feels. You know, I used to be so angry with OCD, and I used to smash doors in my house, not all the time, when sort of angry outbursts, when I just couldn't take it anymore, because it was so... What it used to do was it used to, as we know, it repeats the word over and over, or the fear you're scared of so much, over and over and over and over and over. So when it was harm OCD, it was like, you don't even deserve to live. You don't even deserve to be happy. You don't even deserve a second to breathe. You don't even deserve a second to relax. And then it was that internal torture cycle. And then with sensory motor, it was that, but it felt like a sort of that in a sort of machine gun format, where it was, because you couldn't kind of escape sensory motor. Some of the others, you could use some kind of avoidance tactics to get around it. Now, obviously, OCD morphs around those, but with sensory motor, there was no way to sort of duck and weave and get around it, because it wouldn't allow that, because it was in your head with that sort of mental constraint over and over and over and over and over. So that wasn't very good. Now, also at the same time, when I'm explaining those emotions, you think, well, can't you just sort of relax? This is for the person who doesn't understand OCD. For people watching this, most of them have OCD and they do understand this very well. But you think, can't you just relax, have a massage, do some yoga? No. Yes, that can help create distance and relax the body, but it ain't going to help too much if you think you're the most evil person in the world. It's going to be like, you shouldn't even be enjoying this yoga. You shouldn't even breathe. You should be at home feeling guilty. It's going to do that often. It sort of cuts through like a hot knife through butter. It does that. And I used to go, my mum used to say, go to this mindfulness course, go to this yoga course. And I did a lot of mindfulness and a lot of meditation. And it was very helpful overall in a lot of ways, but it didn't get under those core fears that weren't letting me sort of have that internal release, that sort of internal surrender, as I describe it. And by internal surrender, what I mean is when you're not scared anymore, you feel that sort of release. When you feel it in your stomach, because the stomach tends to be tight, and I feel it just release. And then I think, and then the shoulders sag, the muscles release. And you can't do that with voluntarily sort of just relaxing. If I just stand here now and I relax my shoulders and I relax my body and I breathe just gently, I feel more relaxed, of course. But with OCD right in the core, hammering away, it doesn't allow that. Everything's tightly wound. And when you have OCD, you understand that. I used to go for a massage, and I used to literally think in the massage, like, how on earth can I relax here? Like, my muscles are feeling even tighter. Like, I'd have a massage, walk home, and by the time I got home, my muscles were all tight, because that's what anxiety does. It sort of turns on all those muscles. I used to have so much stomach problems, and I used to get in a hot bath and put all the salts in it and then sit in the bath, and my stomach would be killing. And I'd be like, how much more can I relax? Acupuncture, good for a bit, then the same, because the mind was just pumping it up, pumping it up, pumping it up all the time. So we have to learn to both relax, learn to move towards acceptance, learn to improve our knowledge of OCD, not trying to fight it, not trying to get everything done instantly, not trying to compulsively do everything. I'll read every book over and over, or I'm going to read every article over and over and every blog post over and over, because that doesn't get us anywhere. So we have to go along on a bit by bit, day by day journey. You can start second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, breaking it down. And we can make it through. We can make it through. We tend to think, oh my God, I'm never going to do, I can't handle another day, whatever. But we've made it through all the other days. Your track record, you've survived every day of your life so far. You've done that. You are still here. You've been through hell in so many ways. You've been through finding out you've got OCD. People not understanding you've got OCD. Every single thing. It's like anything. It's like everything's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Take, for example, a business, like with what I do with OCD recovery. It's been a long journey from where I started and to where I am now, and so much further to go. And it's a long journey, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. And the same with fitness. Many times I've not worked out a lot and then had to get back in and then injured or whatever. Marathon, not a sprint. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to enjoy the journey. We need to enjoy the now as we're going along, absolutely. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we are taking it one day at a time, focusing on the direction we want to go, looking at it, and we're going to feel setbacks, and we're going to feel like we're at square one, and we're going to feel like we've got nowhere. But we need to remember, we've done a video on this, there's no such thing as square one. Every moment is new. If, like, for example, now, and then I speak now, that's different because I've just had a couple of thoughts in my head that I didn't have before, so that's different to the period before. There is no square one because you're reading books, you're learning all that information. You can't erase that, okay? It feels like that. It feels like that because what happens is when we're triggered, when we're chronically anxious, when we're chronically guilty, we think, bloody hell, I haven't learned anything if I'm feeling like this again. This is how I felt before. And that's why it's so important to think, hey, I'm going to experience this journey and it's going to be up and down and all over the place. It's not linear, and that's okay. That's part of the journey. People in the past didn't have any journey. They didn't even know they had OCD, and they didn't have anyone to tell anyone. You couldn't exactly say, hey, I think I'm possessed by a demon. That wouldn't end up too well. You'd be on a bonfire. So if you think about how grateful we are for this time is the best time so far to have OCD. Now look, I have no doubt that in 100 years, I imagine OCD will be completely gone. Maybe we're all not here, or maybe we're a super advanced life form with the brain backed up on a computer and artificial intelligence doing everything. Well, I imagine somewhere on that spectrum, OCD will go. But right now, we're in the best time so far. And do I think in the next 10, 20, 30 years, OCD is going to be treated by something like Elon Musk's Neuralink or some kind of AI development? Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I really am. And I think the speed that things are moving, I think probably much quicker than people think. But I don't think I'll be out of a job just yet. I think that might be a few decades away till then. And the thing to think about with OCD is you're thinking of this marathon. You're thinking of hard work, persistent hard work. Not in a hard work like this is hell, as in a great learning experience. We always put these mental barriers. Oh, I've got to go and do something or learn something. Oh, it's so tiring. No, that's good, because you're going to be pushing yourself to learn something new. When I started sort of doing all these Instagram lives and doing the YouTube channel, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to make so many videos for this YouTube channel. It's going to take ages. And then when you get into them, you enjoy them. I know Nick certainly does. He does so many of them. And you get into it and you enjoy it, and then it becomes not a work. It becomes something you want to do. And that is the best way to look at all these things and problems you have in your life. Think, this problem that you have, think, how can this empower my life? How can this change my life? How can this make me grow better? Look at everything like that, you know, and then you won't feel these mental blocks and feel so latched and so like you can't get out of that, because we're closing the doors on ourselves and we need to open them up. But doing that takes practice to even see that, because we're so in the habit of shutting ourselves down and shutting all hope off. We're so used to that. And I've done quite a lot of videos on hope, which would be really good ones to watch if you haven't seen them. But I wanted to come on here today. Like I said, I had a long flight today, and I just thought I'd come on here and talk a little bit about motivation, mental barriers and blocks, the OCD recovery journey, and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'll be uploading this video to YouTube, so you can check it out there. And I'll be back on later in the week with Nick doing an Instagram live where he's going to be talking to me. We'll be covering all different questions of yours about OCD in detail. All right, guys, I will see you later. Take it easy. Bye.